Well, it's unfortunate to accept, but the art of Flash is dying. By the end of the year, if you are not aware, the program Adobe Flash Player is being discontinued and will not be supported on web-based and other internet-based uh, programs like Firefox and Apple stuff and all that good shit. And that's unfortunate because I really like Flash stuff. I mean, I made an entire show about the medium. I mean, the joke of Flash Player as the title of the show is kind of obvious. But it's also unfortunate because all the other Flash media that exists is going to kind of disappear with it. With the fact that internet browsers will be updated, but the old programming will not be, means all that stuff, all the movies, all the games, all the tiny little animations that we all grew up with in the 90s and so on, will be nigh impossible to view through whatever web-based internet explorer. No one uses that anymore. To view it, which is really sad, especially, again, for me, because, I mean, that's the show I make. And also, it's sad because I love that stuff. It's sad to see it go. But, fortunately, there are people like me who also enjoy Flash and have grown up with it that are trying to preserve the media. So, instead of highlighting a game today on the show, a Flash Player, again, joke, haha, we are going to highlight people and sites and things that are trying to preserve Flash gaming, while also highlighting places that you can go to continue playing games, maybe not of the Flash variety, but of the new era of internet gaming, because that's kind of what I've been transitioning from on Flash Player. I realize there's a lot of videos now that I've done that probably the links to those games, while not broken, will not work anymore, or at least the games that I have covered may not. So if you run into one of those videos, let me know so I can update the link. But for future rest of the video, we are going to highlight some programs and other places that you can go to enjoy internet gaming and maybe even dip back into that nostalgia that you remember from your childhood. I'm also going to, in the description, with all the stuff actually, I'm going to link a couple articles that kind of, I don't know, not solidify, that's not the word I'm thinking of, talk about this whole thing. I've got two, that something from Adobe and another article that's kind of the history of Flash and whatnot. It's actually a really interesting article, and I suggest you read it. But those will be in the description along with all the other things that I'm going to show you today. So let's get started. This is Flash Game Archive, or FGA if you want to be anachronistic. This is a giant emulator for Flash games. It is completely free. There is a Patreon, and I suggest you do give them a little bit extra cash because they do great work. They have a lot of games on this emulator. There, I can even see a couple that I recognize. There's Double Dragon Flash Fighter right there. That's a classic, along with Bad Ice Cream. Knit Round for the win. One More Line. I think I've actually covered that one on the channel before, or at least had planned to. I don't remember. I've done so many. Either way, this is an entirely wonderful free download that you just get, and you have thousands of games. I think at the moment, or at least from what I've read, they've got like 1,500 plus, or at least are planning on getting that many games. Oh, Dangerous Dungeons. I saw that one. I noticed that one. Uh, it's a wonderful download that will give you so much variety and so much archival history of Flash games. It's quite amazing. The only thing I will say that's a little bit of a worry is that it's everything. And I mean that it's a kind of not a small download, but it's a sizable enough download where you should at least keep in mind that as this thing gets updated, you're gonna hold on to a lot of Flash games that you might not even be playing at the time. I can't remember what the exact number is, but it's like double-digit gigabytes here. So if you don't have that much storage on your computer or laptop, then this might not be the best thing for you. But if memory is not an issue, then this is probably one of the good ones to get. Also being that they update frequently and you can put in requests for like, hey, this one might be a good idea to put in. I'm really excited to see how much stuff they can actually do. Blue Maxima's Flashpoint is also a Flash launcher emulator. Just like FGA, it is completely free. It's got updates galore, and it's probably got almost more Flash games than FGA. I'm not entirely sure about that. Don't quote me. What Flashpoint does a little bit differently, though, is while you can download the entire library of content, which is, oh boy, it's a lot of gigabytes there, you can also pick and choose instead, like a Steam launcher, if you will. You have the library available, but if you want to only download a few games at a time, you can do that instead. So, unlike FGA, which I don't know does this too, again, when I was looking it up and doing my very brief amount of research, I wasn't entirely sure if you could do that with the FGA launcher, but with Flashpoint you can. That one I do know. So if you are more memory focused and don't have a very large hard drive on your laptop or computer, Flashpoint may actually be the better choice for you. Now, I'm not going to say which one is the better emulator overall. Both do amazing work here. They've both archived and saved thousands of Flash games for preservation and history's sake. It may not seem like a big deal, but it really is. This is millions of hours of work by different individuals. I say millions because, Flash games together, depending on how long you take to make a specific animation and or game, it probably equates to, on average, about 1 million or so hours and whatnot. I don't know. I'm not a math person, but I am a games person, and I do know that there are hundreds of thousands of games that are being saved, and I really, really appreciate both these emulators greatly. So if you are inclined to do so, please download them and maybe even give them a little extra cash. I don't actually know if Flashpoint here has a Patreon, but if they do, go throw them some money if you can. Now, I can't go around talking about Flash game content or even Flash-related anything, without talking about Newgrounds. They are the MacDaddy progenitors of all Flash websites. They have been at this for, as it says here, 20 years. That is a long, long time to not just be showing you games. They also show movies. They do audio. I don't know. Audio can be Flash or whatnot. That's a technical thing that I don't know. They've got art and all that stuff. And as soon as Adobe Flash Player goes away, so does all of this, which is sad. I don't know even if Armor Games or Congregate or Miniclips for that matter are going to survive the cut. But what Newgrounds is doing is actually quite interesting. They are creating their own player. Now, if you are not familiar with the term player in programming standards, neither am I. I am completely hodgepodging this entire summary of what I think the technology does. But essentially, how Adobe Flash Player worked was that you downloaded it, and it acted like a plugin for your website browsers in order to view Flash-related content. Think of it as a very, very, very early app. Now, Newgrounds is doing the exact same thing of sorts. They are creating their own Flash player specifically for their website. If you download this specific program, it will work through your web browser, whatever you use, and only specifically Newgrounds will this work, but you can still continually play and view and experience the entire archive of Newgrounds. I think this is brilliant. They are doing their own little workaround for their own website, and it is probably the easiest way to go about it. Well, not easiest, but more practical, I would say. While the last two emulators are extremely valuable, it's still a lot to do and update and preserve. With Newgrounds Player, I would say it's easier in a sense that they already have the structure behind the website and everything that is in it. So why not just kind of piggyback off that and make their own launcher of sorts in order to keep that alive instead of completely remaking the entire website. I think this is an absolute must download if you are, well, anywhere near a Newgrounds player like I am. I think this is something extremely smart and extremely practical. This is definitely the one to keep an eye on for when all this goes to shit. And like everything else, it's completely free. And like everything else, go support Newgrounds because they love you like we love them. While Flash may be dying, it is not dead. It may draw its last breath at the end of the year, but the idea and the spirit behind what made Adobe Flash Player to begin with still exists in the web today. There are plenty of programs out there that make web-based games, web-based movies. HTML-type programming still exists. And one of the sites that I love to go to that still has tons and tons of not just Flash specifically, but games of any programming genre is itch.io. I use this site 9 times out of 10 when I am making a Flash Player episode because they have just a wide variety of games to choose from, which is why I myself consider Flash Player the series more than just Flash games in general. I titled it because of A, a joke, and B, because it's what started all games, or web-based games specifically, on the internet. But the media and the medium has changed and evolved so much that you can say, nowadays, that any web-based game, in my eyes, is a Flash game. It may not be created with a Flash engine or Flash programming, but the spirit is still there. And places like itch.io or even, there's probably plenty others, but I can't think of them right now. They have and host plenty of other stuff that doesn't need a download or emulator or launcher, plugin, whatever. You should still do all that stuff because history is history and we should never forget the past and how much joy all of those things brought us. But in the future, we don't have to worry about the legacy of Flash disappearing. It can never disappear because spiritually, successors will always exist. So, as always, the link to all the things that I have talked about and shown today will be in the description below. My name is Ben Dark Arts, and hopefully you have not a newfound, but a somewhat interest in preserving our Flash history. I am definitely going to be checking out a lot of my old favorites before all of it goes away, and maybe I'll even show a few of those on the channel as Flash Player videos. But in the future, even though it's not Flash, it's still Flash to me.